get larger, as the drive has expanded, that they are dying faster. These cells in an engineer, and I'm not talking about the stupid marketing material that they give you, an engineer will tell you flat out that in a single layer, a SLC chip, that you can write 100,000 times to one single cell before it will die. In a dual layer, it's only 10,000 times. In a triple bit, it's only 5,000. So
Really?
when you consider that, say, a server is doing 100,000 transactions per second when they're processing, say credit cards or something like that, you're not looking at a lifespan that is livable before it has to be replaced. You're looking at great deaths in the family, basically,
How
that are
how
going to
many
happen.
years? How many years?
You're talking less than one on a standard solid state now. Now, understand that there are other solid state drives that are done with DRAM. And so, like, if you go to like Wachovia or Wells Fargo, whatever now it is, they have banks of solid state drives, but they're not like the ones that you're buying for your laptop or something else from that standpoint, where you're actually going to power it off. It's going to be off part of the time. It's not in use. These things do hundreds of thousands of transactions a second, but they're alive on DRAM. And so DRAM, similar to the RAM in your computer, basically, is going to live a lot longer. It doesn't have that refresh problem. Cells don't die like that. So it's going to live and survive a lot longer.
Huh.
So you don't have the exact same problem that you actually have with current solid state drives that we're putting in laptops or your iPad and your iPhone. Um, those things they're heavily software driven for the wear leveling schemes to make them survive, but they're not going to live.
Hmm. You all right?
They're going to have, yeah, they're going to have to. I mean, we're looking at a couple of years before they've changed the technology enough that they're using some other component that doesn't have the problem. Right now, effectively, solid state disks have been exactly the same since 1984. The same content, the same way that they're made, the silicon that they're using, all of that has been exactly the same since 1984. So until they figure out how to change that to something else so that it does not die as often, it's not going to be widely used in machines that are constantly running all the time without some sort of a fundamental change.
Hmm. Good to know, especially for those of you thinking about getting one of those solid state drives.
Yeah, I mean they're great for laptops and iPads and iPhone. I mean things that also will suspend and be off. But using them for a server, which is primarily what desktops and those kind of things have been going for these days. People are using it to process data, and they're staying on all the time. Um, you get 2 years of life out of it before it's completely dead. Of
Hmm.
course, spinning disks these days, they're dying at 2 years too. So,
Right, right.
whatever. Yeah.
All right. Uncle Al says, does SpinRite work magnetically to repair a hard drive? Um,
Magnetically. Well, basically what SpinRite does is it makes extensive use of the ECC correction component that's actually bound to the 512 bytes. So there's 512 bytes, and a sector doesn't look like what you're used to seeing a sector look like. It actually is about 591 bytes. It has a lot of extraneous data that is with it to actually compare so that you can actually have ECC that actually says this 512 bytes is okay. I have some of those things in some of my slides. If you go online and look at some of my previous presentations, I'll have some of those in there. But SpinRite basically moves the head from a couple of different directions. So it'll move forwards, backwards. Different things happen when you go backwards and forwards on a drive, and you move the head to different locations. It actually comes at it at a different approach. So it's kind of like flying at a different angle. So if you did it kind of like in a helicopter, it's going to be at a different angle every time you approached it. And that's pretty much what happens with SpinRite. It says, oh, look, if I can't read this sector, let's go to the end of the drive and then come backwards, which effectively turns off cache and memory. So it's not caching ahead because you're going backwards. So there's certain functions like that that actually happen. And it has about, my understanding is 18 to 20,000 different routines that it will do over that time period to try to correct that and read that data from that particular sector if it's bad. So during its refresh pattern, basically, it's looking to see, okay, look, do I need to cause this thing to basically be a bad sector, mark it in the bad block table, skip it, put this data in a new location? So that's kind of what it's doing. Now, MHDD has some methods to do that. However, it doesn't have the extensive number of routines to cause that to happen. It has a testing routine and a make bad routine. but it does not do it 20 different ways. There is a tool called the DDI, and the DDI is a piece of hardware. It uses the same basic principles, except that it's only doing recovery. It's not making modifications to the original drive. So it's reading that content, saving it to a secondary drive. That's very important, obviously, which is what SpinRite doesn't do. If you had damage and you couldn't read the sector, and that sector is a critical sector, something bad happened, you may whittle down your chances of recovering the data because you've just killed it.
I see. Good answer.
Yep.
Okay. I think that's going to be it. Thank you guys in the chat room for the questions. Thank you, Scott, for answering them.
You're welcome.
I think I'm going to end off the stream now. Guys who are watching on the live stream, we're going to be back in about half an hour to do Linux for the rest of us. So if you just want to hang out, chat with each other, we'll be back in a bit. Scott, just hang on the line for 1 sec, and we'll see you guys in a little bit.